Welcome to the party. We are discussing Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Pena, and directed by Peyton Reed. Does anyone else believe in the bureaucracy?
I have the spirit stick.
I have a big mug of something.
I've got ants in my pants.
I hope you don't, because that could hurt.
Unless you have one of those little, hearing aids, and then you can, tell them not to do anything.
Did anybody notice that he had the hearing aid before they explained it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a second. And I thought maybe it was just, he's getting old.
Well, I think that's the whole point, is that no one knows that that thing is controlling ants. They just think that he's losing his hearing. But, okay, so we are talking Ant-Man. This is the first time we're talking about a Marvel movie on the Arthouse Legends videocast.
Yeah, which feels appropriate for this one because it is a smaller picture.
It is a smaller picture, and no pun intended, actually, on that. I mean, this is, especially after Avengers Age of Ultron, am I hearing a little disappointment?
They needed this to
bigger
reset. Well, and this is kind of
Yeah.
the boundary layer between phases, right? So this film feels like, and in the same way, I think that Iron Man 3 did something that they really need to do, which was make a movie that delivered the action and the humor and all that. But in many ways, Iron Man 3 was a bit smaller of a picture. I mean, never mind the fact that it ended with like 1 million Iron Man suits or whatever. But I think after the big spectacles of the Avengers films, they need that little smaller movie to kind of reset the franchise, take it back to its root. Yeah, exactly. Dial it back a little bit.
And then come back up and work your way back.
Exactly. Because if it was crescendo, 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 crescendo all the time, it would just get overwhelming. So this film, to me, I appreciated doing the little things. And I'll keep making size puns, but
I see that. But, I mean, I mean, considering that we're coming off of Avengers, and the next movie that we're going to be having is Captain America Civil War.
Right. Big deal.
I think it is kind of a good thing that they decide to have this kind of interlude. In a way, it does feel kind of like an intermission, right? Especially knowing how deep and how far Civil War is going to go.
Yeah.
But,
and previewed in this, too. Spoilers.
Yes. And yes, we will be spoiling the living hell out of this movie, so just kind of keep that in mind.
We're going to spoil it like you left it out on the counter and attracted ants. That's why we have ants.
Yes. Oh, I just thought it was because we'd stolen something from this house before, and
that's true.
Came back to return it.
Okay, but before we go too far down the movie road, let's talk about this film's pedigree, because this was one of the original Marvel films that was pitched back when Marvel was an independent studio making Iron Man.
Yes.
So they at the 2006 Comic-Con, they pitched Iron Man with Favreau and Ant-Man to be directed by Edgar Wright, one of my favorites. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then this story this film kind of went on and went on and went on, and it was always kind of on the back burner. They were always about to make it, and then things started getting rolling. And I think we can blame the shawarma at the end of the first Iron Man for that, starting this whole Avengers thing, because then it became about building towards that, and they had to put in Captain America and Thor and everybody, and then Iron Man got another movie, and then they did the Avengers. So I felt like Ant-Man kind of kept getting the shaft a little bit, and then by the time they got around to making it, Marvel was in such a different place that it didn't really make sense for Edgar Wright to do it, I think, and maybe he would have done a different film.
Well, he would have done a different film, and that's one of the reasons why he left. But I'm going to say this, and this might not be a very popular opinion, but why is it that Marvel has to have every film build up to the next big film? I mean, wouldn't it be nice just to have one-offs that kind of just, again, give us that reset, just give us that moment of pause, something just a little different and that doesn't have to tie into the next Avengers movie or the next Iron Man or anything like that? I mean,
this movie had great subtlety in that it feels like a standalone. It pretty much is a standalone, but once you step back and look, you see little thin strings attached to every other movie.
No, they
but
weren't
you don't
little
need to see them
strings.
to appreciate it.
They weren't
Okay,
little
sometimes
strings.
through rope, but
They were as obvious as a spider web.
Yeah.
Oops, am I getting a little too ahead of myself?
Right. There were
yeah.
threads there for sure. But I mean, it starts with flashback to the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. Who forgot that John Slattery was playing Howard Stark? I did.
I didn't.
Because I was used to Dominic Cooper at this
I
point.
would have preferred Dominic Cooper, to be honest, because he had just had so much fun in the first Avenger and Agent Carter. I loved it when Dominic Cooper came on Agent Carter.
Which it's so weird watching that scene when you think about the fact that Douglas is aged down, she's aged up, Slattery's just John Slattery.
Yeah. But
So-
I'll be honest here. I love the fact that they it's almost like they took Michael Douglas from Wall Street
They did.
and just kind of put him into Ant-Man. That was shocking to me. It's like, wow, that makeup was really good.
Good. Miniaturization works. No.
Oh my god, that was awesome. I mean, I love the scene. I love the fact that, again, they're kind of implying that S.H.I.E.L.D. is not the most trustworthy of organizations, something that obviously calls back to the Winter Soldier specifically.
Yeah.
I love that. We know that Stark's on the up and up, but obviously when you have Martin Donovan playing anybody in a film, he is automatically suspect number one, or at least for me. Every time I see him, it's just because he has that raspy voice and he kind of squints, and I mean, all he needs is the horns and the tail and maybe a pitchfork, and and then you got your man. But I love the fact that he shows up. And Hydra's not the same organization that it was before.
They're good.
Well,
they're good now. I mean, I feel like.
But they're trying to explain that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
But
exactly.
It's not
like
quite
Ward is making a kinder, gentler Hydra, right?
Yeah.
But again, I thought this was a great starting point. To start with that flashback, there were many different kind of ideas about how to start the film. One was going to be kind of like you would see him in action, Hank Pym. You would find out where the tank came from. But then they were like, no, you know what? That's too much at the beginning. Let's do this, but then make it about Scott Lang and Baskin Robbins, because Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Yes.
Okay, but before we talk about Baskin Robbins, first off, we've got to talk about our main character, Scott Lang.
Yeah.
I love how they introduced him. I love that setup of him having to, or that initiation, which seems like it's just another prison fight. I love that whole reveal. I laughed extremely hard. It set the tone for the humor of this film. That this plays into Paul Rudd's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
He feels really comfortable. Obviously, he should, because he's one of the screenwriters of this film. Yes, especially coming from Edgar Wright and
Joe Cornish.
Joe Cornish. By the way, if you haven't seen Attack the Block, you're missing out. But
and I don't know. Like, I was listening to an interview with Peyton Reed the other day, and I don't know. And even he'll admit, like, at this point, it would be impossible to say where Edgar Wright's movie ends, where their movie begins. They were doing rewrites on set. They were coming up with new material. The montages, the tip scenes were actually added much later, and that seems like the most Edgar Wright-like touch when you think about it. But that even came way after. So again, I think we can lament for the film that might have been, but I think it would have fit that era of the Marvel universe, and they're at such a different place here that I think tonally it has to be. It was to me a little disappointing to have another one and done villain. We haven't built anyone up yet to at least where like Loki got to, and I think at this point the franchise is suffering a little. We've had the looming threat of Thanos for so long, but yet they haven't really fleshed him out as a character. So I think at this point they really need to start building someone into the MCU who's going to be a pervasive threat. I'm hoping it's going to be Martin Freeman from Civil War, which I think would be really cool to build him into like a recurring villain.
I was thinking it was going to be the mercenary Cap fights that gets burned on the boat. Yeah, at the end. Because he's supposed to be big in Civil War.
Yeah, Crossbones will come back.
Yeah.
But even so, like it seems like he's kind of coming back as a different character. It would be neat to have not only like the threat of a villain that returns, but Loki is pretty likable as a villain. Like he's certainly captured the fan community's adoration. So it would be fun to see something like that happen again.
Well, and Tom Hiddleston's getting so many other roles right now too.
Well, I'll be honest. With the exception of Red Skull and Loki, Marvel really hasn't used their best villains just yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would love for them to kind of dig in, look at what they've got, see, just kind of really pull them out and see what you have that can fill those sweet spots.
Yeah.
But for the first two phases of Marvel, considering the long haul that they're intending, I'll be honest, I'm not surprised that they're having or that they haven't found those villains just yet. But
by the same token, Red Skull didn't actually die. He kind of disappeared in a flash. Aaron Cross didn't actually die. He disappeared in a flash. Ronan disappeared in a flash. The one from Thor: The Dark World disappeared in a flash. Guy Pearce disappeared in a flash. Like, they could all come back for one big movie, which would be spectacular, but
they'd kill each other.
Well, Suicide Squad, right?
You think Loki would ever take an order from Red Skull? I am the Master Race. I'm a god.
Well, no. I mean, Loki isn't one for a frontal assault. He's the one that gets you from the side. But coming back to Ant-Man specifically, though, Darren Cross. Okay, first off, I love Corey Stoll. Right. I've loved him since I saw him.
This is like the House of Cards invasion this year for Marvel, because you've got he's on Ant-Man. You've got Kate Mara and Reggie Cathy on Fantastic Four. Like House of Cards, it's like 3 years ago they started making these movies and cast everyone using one.
I'm just gonna say this right now: if they do Norman Osborn again with the Spider-Man, Kevin Spacey, you do that. And there you go. You will have your villain.
Marvel of Cards.
Forever. I mean, Kevin Spacey would. He would be as big a draw as Tom Hiddleston or Robert Downey Jr. You would never have to worry about the fans walking away from Norman Osborn.
Right. Okay. Anyway, back to Ant-Man. Sorry.
Yes, back to Ant-Man. Yeah. But Corey Stoll. I'll be honest here. I kind of like this villain a little bit. I love the fact that there's this conflicted relationship that he has with Hank Pym. I love that this is a guy that I love the fact that you think that he's kind of aloof, or he's so obsessed that he isn't looking at the big game, and then you find out he actually has been planning this from step one. He actually knew every step that was going to happen, and he was just letting everybody think that he wasn't paying attention. And again, when you go back and you see it, he actually is. You notice that he knows what's going on. The way, and I love what Corey Stoll does to kind of give you those hints that, I'm playing along, but I really do know what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's to the...
Step 15, so up to Hydra.
I like the characterization that his character gets, which is they talk about him, and they talk about like the technology that he's working with, and they're like, oh yeah, it'll make you crazy. And he was not that solid to start with, and I love that, because at the end when he is crazy, you go, oh yeah, totally. We see what's happened here.
I mean, he's killing off his, people who are not on his side with a goop machine.
Yeah, I love the goop. I'm sorry, I really enjoy. I just wipe you up with a napkin, like their little paper towel. I felt bad, like the lamb. I'm like, oh no. But
I feel bad for the janitor. I mean, here he is. He's thinking that he's like cleaning up something.
What is clogging this toilet?
So, like somebody just hacked a loogie in it, and
and here he is. He's cleaning up remains, not knowing it. But the thing is that especially with this particular villain, he does come off as a bit goofy with the fact that here he is with his little video thing at the front where he's showing all the applications that you can have with this technology. I thought that was especially with the whole with the whole with the car, assassination in the car kind of thing. I forgot the line that was given, but it's like, you can be driven, or I forgot, but it's kind of hokey.
Yeah.
But I thought it was kind of, but again, I think that especially when you look at it, he was doing that on purpose to get Hank to make a move.
Play his hand,
yeah.
And so it's one of those things where, if you're looking at it from a, where you think that he's playing it aloof, or that you honestly think that he's just dim, then it does come off as eye-rollingly awkward, but at the same time, it is kind of smooth, because Pym isn't one to trust anybody, right?
Right.
And Michael Douglas, by the way, holy crap!
Yeah.
I mean, that is a performance, especially in a Marvel film. I mean, Anthony Hopkins played it way over the top with his Odin. Robert Redford, I think, is probably the most subtle and played it the most realistically, but considering what Hank Pym is and the kind of character he is, and the temper that he has, which I have to admit is perfect that Michael Douglas got to play this part, because Michael Douglas angry is kind of disturbing, right? I mean, that's what actually got him like the Gordon Gekko role.
What's the movie? I've seen it too, where
Wall Street?
No, where he goes crazy.
He goes
falling
crazy
down.
in a lot of movies.
Yeah, falling down. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. But yes, and it was directed by Joel Schumacher. Get over it. But
no, it's a good movie.
Yes, it is. But
okay. So like, Michael Douglas again is an actor that I really enjoy, and I think they played it right where it should have been. This is kind of like the Mask of Zorro, right? The passing of the mantle to the younger hero, in a way, but it works. It's a trope, but it works.
Well, one thing I like about what this film does with that particular trope is it introduces a wrinkle, which is that there's someone else who is clearly the better the better person.
More qualified.
I mean, and I'll be honest, I was one of those people that was going, why are you not letting her do this?
Too bad she's a girl.
I could see, and at the same time, I cannot see, because he's afraid that she's going to go insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and he's willing to sacrifice him to get this mission done.
Right.
But at the same time, this falls into the trope of have the woman train the hero to be the hero and then sit in the back.
Well,
which is yeah.
And Evangeline Lilly actually did that part right because you could tell every moment she's irritated, she's angry, she's just holding it back. And I'll be honest here, I know obviously we'll probably be seeing her in future Ant-Man and other films possibly.
Okay.
I would love to see her just unleashed because I have a feeling that she could actually be as exciting to watch as Black Widow.
The Wasp is a much more visually interesting character because she flies, and there's all kinds of I mean, not that I mean, I'm glad that we got Anthony in this one.
Yeah.
And doing the flight stuff was great, but I mean, I think the Wasp and really one of my favorite characters. So to bring her in, and I think Evangeline Lilly is perfect for that role. I'm interested to see because it was kind of ambiguous who the first Wasp was.
That was Janet. Well, I mean, you don't know who the actress is.
The actress, yeah. Right. And they kind of left it open so they could cast somebody in that role. It would be fun to see what they do. What they do with that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest here. When it comes to the Wasp, and I'm part of me wants to wait until we get to the end to talk about this, but when it comes to the Wasp, though, whoever they get, or eventually Lily is going to have to compete with Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Janet Van Dyne, because she is actually my favorite version of the Wasp, and in a way, I think she's the perfect. Her personality is the perfect for that particular role. So I'm hoping that her character, I think, was it Karen Van Dyne, or I forgot what her first name was.
Hope
Van Dyne, yes. But I hope that she stops being mopey. I hope that she kind of gets her joy.
I think that mid-credit scene fixes that. It's like,
well, she says about damn time. But
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really think that that's the way that they've got to go for the next one. And honestly, I think I would get more mileage out of the Evangeline Lilly Wasp franchise than the Paul Rudd Ant-Man franchise. I think it'll be fun to see him with the Avengers and kind of sparring with them a little bit, which we did get to see a little bit in this film. But to me, I think the Wasp solo film might be more fun than another Ant-Man solo film. They said at the end of the credits, Ant-Man will return, but I don't know, especially with this film's performance, if we'll see another solo Ant-Man film. And I'm fine with that. I think that
actually it's doing pretty well for a standalone film without, especially for Ant-Man. I mean, I'll tell you right now, a whole bunch of
Guardians
people.
of the Galaxy money, but
Well, the thing was, Guardians of the Galaxy it was. I don't want to say it's a fluke, but you cannot compare anything with Guardians of the Galaxy because that thing is set in the center. No matter at this point, they could do a Swamp Thing film.
Yeah.
And you would actually have people go, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Where no one else will.
Girl.
Yeah, they could probably do a Squirrel Girl film, and no one would bat an eye at this point because of Guardians of the Galaxy. But Ant-Man, even after Guardians, I was hesitant to
absolutely
buy Ant-Man.
And I think that's, part of the reason that I think it was so far back at the beginning that they're like, well, we got to lead with this because we can't get and I think you can't get through like Captain America and Thor and Iron Man, and then go do Ant-Man. I think that's really tough.
But here's the genius of Ant-Man, though. And the genius of Ant-Man is that they went comedy. Instead of it being an action, hardcore, movie like Winter Soldier and Avengers, this thing focused on being funny. It played more as a comedy. The action was there was action, but it's kind of like Beverly Hills Cop in that sense. And because especially considering the premise, they found that sweet spot of this is a silly premise. We're going to play knowing this is a silly premise. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this funny, but we're going to get people to actually care about this character. And that is something that they did very well. And that's one of the reasons why I could feel the Edgar Wrightness of this, because Edgar Wright has done this before in quite a few of his films, especially characters that we shouldn't like, and we like.
Yeah.
And so with Ant-Man specifically, they did this not just with Paul Rudd. They didn't do this just with cool spectacle, but again, they played heavier on the comedy, which means that they had to bring in some good comedy, and that's going to lead me to my favorite character, Luis. I love Luis.
The whole gang.
Oh, I mean, the whole gang is good, but Luis. I mean, from the first moment we see Michael Pena, and I've loved Michael Pena since Crash. I've been one of those that's like, Pena deserves an Oscar, kind of thing. But oh man, I loved Luis from the first moment he shows up. Giving us because he's the exposition, which is the funniest thing. If all the exposition really comes from him, right? I mean, he's the one who establishes just how awesome Scott is, for what he did. He's the one who tells us about the whole heist. He's the one that he's the one that moves kind of the story along in a way, and yet at the same time, every time he shows up, I'm just waiting for him to give another joke, to do something awesome, and he never fails me. I mean, even when he's playing the security guard at the end.
Which is a small world after all.
I got a badge. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that they set that up, with the fact that he was the only one that punched out the prison guy.
Yeah.
That we saw at the beginning of the film, and that guy's big, so you have to think, man, that's impressive. But
I love the whistling, because he's like, I think that's gonna be my thing, and then so he's whistling. It's a small world after all, so which is of course the Disney connection.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love Luis. I love the other guys too, especially when they're in the middle of the heist and they pull their part.
Yeah.
But
what about? So let's talk about the Honey I Shrunk the Kids moments in the film. Did you guys think that the shrinking stuff worked? Did you like the ants? Did you want to see them in a bowl of cereal with Cheerio as the life preserver? I mean,
no, I didn't want a Honey the I Shrunk the Kids rehash. I actually kind of like the fact that he was falling through the cracks.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
hitting the record.
I love the rat.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
Being outside when he's outside trying to identify the ants.
Yeah,
during the training, that was great. Scene, so.
Yeah, I love how they did the shrinking. Although part of me, those are those scenes that I kind of wish that Edgar Wright was involved in, because I'm pretty sure that he would have done kind of the same thing he did with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
To animate the shrinking specifically.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of the film where I wanted a bit more visual pizzazz. So, and I think the shrinking animation maybe was one of those points. But again, I felt like this film did it subtly enough that it wasn't too much. It was almost believable. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the end with the quantum realm was so trippy that it kind of like made up for enough other stuff that we didn't really get. But yeah, I enjoyed the shrinking stuff. The personalities of the ants I thought was a lot of fun. Obviously the naming of one of them named I'm gonna call him Anthony.
Anthony.
And then of course
Winter Anthony.
His sacrifice at the end. But I mean, you got to figure ants, their life expectancy isn't that long. He had a far more exciting life than most, I would think. But I do love, and of course at the end, the larger than life ant.
Yes, that's the part that really did feel Honey I Shrunk the Kids.
That's a messed up looking dog.
Me, it was the Thomas train that had.
Did you see did you listen to the interview about how they got Thomas?
No.
what they had the hoops they had to jump through for that. They basically had to sit down with a representative from the rights holder, and they were just presented this whole long. Thomas has to be a neutral party, cannot take sides, cannot do any offensive action, cannot do. They're like, yeah, it's just going to be a toy that goes around the table. It's not going to do anything. And other than that,
it
they were
fit a character.
Yeah,
I mean, and possibly one of the funnier scenes in the film, definitely.
Oh, I like the bug zapper. I'm sorry. Like, of course, he ends up in the bug zapper.
Okay, can we talk about Scott's ex-wife and her family and his little daughter?
Judy Greer from Jurassic World with the same guy? I don't know.
No, it's not the same guy. That's,
I know. So Judy Greer is this summer has been cast as the ancillary female character that is there to kind of nag and do stuff and make you feel bad.
Well, I mean, she has to do something besides Carol Cheryl from Archer, and let's be honest, this is as far different from that character as you'll ever get. But I mean,
she got ants.
But no, I mean, it is kind of sad seeing Judy Greer, who I know is capable of doing much more than she is here, kind of stuck in these kind of not the kind of disproving mother character, just like giving our main character a lot of crap. It's one of those things where when people say this is a trope, this I can definitely understand. Although I did like the fact that Bobby Cannavale, who this is supposed to be the jerk, right? This is the other man who wants Scott out. He's going to do everything he can to.
Well, and he's the anti-Scott. He's a cop.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. They set that up very well.
Well,
and from his point of view, he's not wrong.
Yeah. Okay, I got to.
He doesn't know what's going on.
There is one thing about this movie that I have a real problem with, and it is Scott's background. Okay, so they make him out to be this kind of awesome thief, but from what it sounds like, he's only had one job.
Well,
but it was big.
It was big.
The backstory on Scott is that he was a cat burglar. Like that was his career. He was a career criminal. He met Judy Greer, had a kid, and decided to straighten out and get a real job, so he started working for VistaCorp, right? And then he discovered all the crap that VistaCorp was doing, so he figured, oh, what the hell, I'll just do one last job. He kind of got carried away, and the Ferrari ended up in the pool.
Okay, so that's in the prequel comics or something?
It's what I read somewhere. So
yeah, and also if you watch there's a little prequel interview that they had that stars the one chick from Iron Man.
I will say that that exposition could have been handled better. There was probably the timeline's a little more because you're supposed to feel sympathetic towards Scott, but he clearly has criminal connections. What he was in jail for was kind of like a Robin Hood thing, but at the same time, they don't really give it to you all in the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the fact that he insists that he's called a burglar because robbery
implies threat. It implies threat.
Threat. And he doesn't like confrontation.
I will say, apparently they did for the robbery scene. I'm sorry, the burglary scene in the house, Hank Pym's house, or you find out. They did consult an actual security expert to say, okay, now what would the security measure be that would be really tough, and then how would you work your way around that, using the super glue for the fingerprint and freezing the inside of the safe and all that. Those are real strategies. Yeah,
but let's be honest here. We're in the Marvel universe where counter theft and devices are supposed to be a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, but most of those are manufactured by Stark, and Prim hates anything Stark.
I don't know if the best is Stark, and you have people like Noah Cross. That's Chinatown.
And look at the competition. Who was the villain from 2 that was
Whiplash?
No, the guy funding Whiplash.
Hammer Tech. Oh, is that Hammer Tech?
Tech.
Hammer Tech does not work out.
You won't want Hammer Tech.
That's what I was thinking about that too.
It's a hammer safe. If I hit it here.
I mean, so you had Cross, you had Guy Pearce's character, you have Hammer Tech. Like, there's all these people that are involved in this business. And I guess if you're not Stark, like, they're all getting like systematically taken out because they aspire to supervillainy, and then something goes wrong. But I love when they blow up the building, and I didn't realize that the C4 charges also had the shrinking particles attached to them. Yeah. So not only do they blow up the building, but they miniaturize all the debris, and it just goes zoop, and it's gone.
Because we couldn't have
collateral damage or anything like that. But you could drive a tank right out the building. All right, when did you figure out it was a real tank?
I knew from the moment that they introduced it. I'm sorry. It's like, that is not a miniature. And on top of that, considering, I mean, especially if you know anything about Hank Pym, the character who's anti-violent, or who doesn't like violence, I just don't see him having a tank for a keychain. Unless it's a real tank.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just me though. A lot of this film is kind of predictable.
That's
really predictable.
It was a little predictable. Especially like if you'd seen the trailers, you kind of had an idea where things were headed. Any surprises for you guys that you enjoyed, or other than kind of like the characters and the jokes? But I mean, I think for me the Falcon fight, I knew Falcon was going to be in it somehow, but I think actually doing that scene was brilliant.
They were hiding that fact for a while.
Other than the fact that it feels like it was in a rewrite, like they just decided to like they did this just before.
Well, yeah, it was because I don't know if it was right before release, but after Winter Soldier came out, the writers were a really big fan of what Anthony Mackie did, and they were a fan of the character. And they said they wanted to show Ant-Man going up against an Avenger, but they didn't want it to be Stark, they didn't want it to be Cap or Thor or anybody like that. And Falcon felt like the right level of hero for him to fight. And then I just love that he's like, don't tell Steve about this.
Yeah.
No, don't tell Cap about this.
Don't tell Cap about this.
Tell Cap.
But no, I mean, I love the fight. And again, it gives us a chance to see Ant-Man in an action sequence before we get to the main, so we know exactly what Ant-Man is capable of. I love the fact that they went with both, him shrinking and growing big, and using both sides to his advantage. I love the fact that Falcon wasn't easy to bring down.
Right.
It was a really good, long, hard, knockout, drag-out fight, although at the same time you never felt that this was going to get too out of hand.
Right.
Although, you do have Falcon shooting guns off at Ant-Man, which again also gives us a chance to see how Ant-Man would deal with guns.
Right.
Another thing that or at least I had a question about when it came to that. But I love the whole Falcon thing. I actually love the revelation of Avengers Academy. I'm going to call it Avengers Academy.
It's what it seems like. Yeah. And again, it leads to the end of the film, and how like the very end, the shawarma, right? I might know a guy. So
yeah. Yeah, but again, is he talking about Ant-Man, or is he talking about Spider-Man? Because you have we got
a guy who crawls, we got a guy who swings, we got a guy
who climbs walls.
Yeah, and they said that might not all be referring to the same character.
Of course, I think one has to be Daredevil on top of that.
Yeah.
But
but again, I think setting up the Civil War connection at the end, obviously we see Bucky. He's got his arm stuck in something. What did we say the other night? It was a Pringles can or
Pringles can, because you always get your hand stuck in a Pringles can.
And then they mentioned the Accords, the mysterious Accords.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that only applies to heroes, probably.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man's a criminal. It's known. He's
Wow.
not known. And, the whole Ant-Man family we're forming doesn't like Stark.
Right.
So,
So I don't know. I thought that was fun. I knew they were going to do a lead into Civil War because you kind of have to at this point, like it's being built up and built up. But
yeah, that was the
Mhm.
big lead. Well, apparently that scene was filmed for Civil War, and it's going to be
yeah,
in
exactly.
Cap
Yeah, it's going to be
3.
in. Yeah, it's going to fit right in the movie.
Yeah.
Kind of like the shawarma at the end of Captain America, right? Like that
Well, it's,
fit. That
well,
fit right.
it's,
The
it's
first
more like
Captain America.
Thor's hammer in Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Which
So,
okay.
yeah.
I could talk about that, but
Yeah.
there was another point I had. Oh, the scene where he says, "What do you think? I think we should call the Avengers.
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
we need."
it's the most
And there,
the most logical thing ever in it spoken in any
yeah,
superhero
yeah.
movie.
But
Let's
I
go
love
get
the
the other
answer,
guys.
which is like, yeah, they're too
Sorry.
busy dropping cities out of the sky and
Yeah.
stuff. Which, oh yeah, that happened, by the way.
No,
Yeah, which
I actually love his line after that. Is like, I've been spending decades keeping this
Right,
technology out of
out
the
of
hands of
Stark
Stark. I'm
hands.
not going to give it to another one.
right.
You know,
Because he'll just create another world-destroying robot with it.
He'll create a
He didn't
miniature
learn.
Iron Man
He
suit.
didn't learn the first.
Yeah.
okay, so another thing I have to appreciate is how Darren finally finds out how to shrink something through the use of a suit, which should be kind of, it's one of those things that I love because it's both kind of obvious, but at the same time, especially if you're so devout to shrinking people, that it's one of those things that you could kind of, you miss and just kind of not figure out until much later. Uh, the little tiny goat I thought actually kind of reminded me of the Bride of Frankenstein. I don't know if y'all saw that or
Yeah.
not, where you have those glass jars with the elephant and the giraffe and
Felt
stuff.
bad for the lambs or sheep. Yeah.
Bah.
But I
It's a
actually
horrible scientific method, though. They blow up a sheep and then they go, "We'll just bring in the next one." No, don't you understand what you did wrong on this one? Don't you want to go over all the data and go?
he's mad. He's a
Okay,
mad scientist.
I know.
I mean, he
Is he
is a
mad or
Frankenstein.
angry?
Actually, if you think about
Yeah.
it, there's a lot of Frankenstein elements in this film. I
Elements,
didn't
yeah.
realize it. I mean, if you really look at it, there are,
Yeah.
especially if you've read the book, there's quite a bit. You have the creator of a technology who comes to resent it, but at the same time doesn't want anyone else to find out. To find out this technology. You have forces on the outside. You have a monster who was made through obsession. There's a whole bunch, and of course, if he'd actually died in the bug zapper, then that would have also been kind of appropriate.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, but there's a whole bunch of classical references throughout this film that I thought was kind of cool, especially in a film like Ant-Man, which you just don't think would, have these kind of things.
These flourishes. Yeah.
I mean, they're small ones and not really significant, but for someone who appreciates outside the box kind of stuff, I thought was kind of a cool callback.
Does this topple any Marvel films from any number one spots on your lists?
Well, this is in the top 3 or 4 of my favorite Marvel films.
Okay.
This actually overtakes all of the Iron Man films.
Interesting.
Well, you have to understand, I'm as much as I enjoy the first Iron Man, if I thought Ant-Man was predictable, the first Iron Man, I was able to predict every single thing that happened in that movie from the moment it started.
Yeah.
Whereas with Ant-Man, there was a couple of things I didn't kind of see coming. It actually knew just how it kind of knew that it was playing from the Iron Man playbook and was willing to kind of subvert it a little bit, which I thought was kind of fun. Michael Douglas and Paul Rudd just have such good chemistry. Michael Pena, I mean,
I love him.
I love him. I'd actually love to see him come back for Captain America and Avengers.
He may.
I mean,
That
if
may be
if they could find a suit for him, hell,
that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
They need to make him. You find out that he's a superhero too, like they're doing on the Flash right now, where everyone's going to be a superhero.
Make him the Beetle or something, or the Tick. Oh, they meant
the
wrong company.
I'm not feeling this one toppling my I don't know if it comes close to my top 5. I'd say films in my top 5 would be the first Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3. I think for me, this might make number 5 on my list, but that just kind of depends on how I'm feeling about the other 2 Iron Man movies at the moment.
I still can't believe that Iron Man 3 is so high on your list, man.
I can't believe that.
Guys, no. It's
the worst. I mean, for me, Iron Man 3 is the worst of them.
3 is the worst. 3 for you is worse than 2.
It's worse. Oh no, the thing about 2, and this is something that most people forget, is 2 is kind of like Ant-Man in the sense that it plays more towards the comedy than the action.
It does.
And I actually like that in the movie because honestly,
3 doesn't have the comedy. Shane Black, come on.
No, oh God! I mean, they played the trauma too hard, so I didn't have a chance to laugh. I did laugh at the Colin Slattery stuff. But outside of that, I didn't laugh at all, to be honest.
3 was almost a remake of The Incredibles. I've seen that several times. Oh no, obsessive fanboy decides that he's going to become his own power and strike down the guy who he used to admire.
I'm sorry. I like Iron Man 3. I will defend that being on my list. I noticed you didn't put up any fights about my other picks, so I'm probably right about something. If I had said like Thor 2, you guys would have been like, oh, Thor 2. But
that's kind of low on mine, yeah.
Actually, I like Thor 2 a little bit more than Thor 1, but at the same time, it's one of those movies that I can't defend.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, the nice thing about what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing right now is they're clearly differentiating these franchises. So if sweeping fantasy epics are your thing, you're probably going to like Thor. If heist movies are your thing, or if they kind of take that angle, comedy action movies like buddy movies, that clearly is where the Ant-Man niche is going to be. I like that they're doing different eras with the Captain America films, where the first one was a World War II thriller, the second one was a 70s thriller. It seems like the next one's going to be like a post 9/11 thriller. So I like that they're doing things with that. And Guardians of the Galaxy is just pure bonkers fun. So yeah,
space opera.
It's nice that they're doing different things with these franchises. And when I say the ones that I like the best, those are. I think you can kind of have your favorites, but still appreciate the whole.
No, I mean, again, I'm not gonna ding you too hard. It's just, when it comes to Iron Man 3, it's one of those movies that there's a lot of people who kind of side with me on that, but again, it's just one of those things I just don't understand it.
And if you side with me out there, people watching, let me know, because
Civil War.
Oh, there are people who love.
Civil War begins here. No.
Yeah. Thor: The Dark World might have my favorite soundtrack of the Marvel films. So, I don't know. I mean, go figure. I haven't really listened to the Ant-Man soundtrack though, but I remember it being pretty good.
Yeah, but again, for the most part, the Marvel films are consistent. That's something that I really appreciate. Right. Even with the worst of them, they're for the most part pretty entertaining.
They are, yeah. I almost feel at this point they're being a little too consistent. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of act structure. And like you mentioned with the predictability, I think we can really
experiment. Something.
Yeah, we can really only see this formula done so many times. I know they've said that they really don't plan on altering it, but now that other other properties are starting to kind of imitate it, it becomes a bit too much. I think even when we were talking about when we were talking about Jurassic World, that's almost like the Avengers of dinosaur movies, because at the end you have like dinosaurs teaming up to fight like the bad dinosaur, and so it kind of becomes a little bit too much at a certain point. So, but I want
begin the fan art of Blue as Captain America now.
before, I mean, come on, they've already done that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well,
Before we stop, I want to talk about the trailer that we got today, or last night actually. But do we have anything else to say about Ant-Man?
Well, it does feel like it's if you read between the lines, this is how the rest of the world views the Avengers.
Yeah, true.
And whenever anybody's talking about them, it's like, oh, the guys who like to drop cities on people and wreck things and ruin everything, and Stark's a bastard who steals technology from other people, and it's not a good worldview.
Well,
the only thing you've seen, yeah.
Well, I think that especially after Avengers, we have to get, because again, there's only going to be about 2.5 hours for Civil War to tie everything up. So they have to kind of establish this stuff before we ever get to Civil War for the Marvel fans. I mean, if you're not a Marvel fan, you're really not going to care. But the thing is that for me, Ant-Man was a good kind of, breathe easily, enjoy having this kind of light-hearted...
Take a break.
Go surfing on some ants kind of thing, and especially with Paul Rudd as your lead, that actually works for what this film is going for.
Yeah, and it does. I really think it does, because Ultron and Civil War are going to, Ultron was heavy, Civil War is going to be heavy. This was a nice breather in the middle.
Yeah, and then and then of course we're gonna, with Phase 3, we are going to have some new faces coming in. We're going to, and I think that it's going that especially depending on where they're intending to go with Infinity War specifically. I'm curious to see where they're intending to go with these different directions. But overall, though, let's just say that when we started off with Phase 2, with Iron Man 3 really not satisfying me, I was worried that this was not going to work for me. And I actually like Avengers Age of Ultron a lot more than a lot of other people who've had a lot of problems with it. But overall, though, I actually prefer Phase 2 over Phase 1 at this particular point.
Can I make a movie pitch recommendation?
Sure, as long as it doesn't have anything about a self-riding motorcycle.
Can we have a combined Black Widow, Wasp, and Pepper in the Iron Man armor movie? Those three. Let's just give those three a movie. Let's just let it happen.
Sure. Captain Marvel, Lady Sif, Agent May.
We haven't had Captain Marvel yet, so when she gets her own movie, then we'll.
I mean, they're doing that in the comics.
But yeah, Lady Sif
with A-Force, so they're having an all-female Avengers team. And there's probably a spot for Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
All right.
We just can't use the mutant word.
So,
which brings us to.
Let's talk about the trailer that dropped last night, because. Again, we're talking Marvel, and while we're talking Marvel, we have to talk about Deadpool. It's not a Marvel Studios film, but at the same time, I feel like it's going to be the anti-Marvel in a lot of ways. What do you guys think?
I think that trailer needed more F-bombs.
Yeah, okay. It was the Red Band trailer. But.
It is a Red Band trailer, but we're also talking about a movie that is about 7 months away. And you know that they're going to drop at least 2 more trailers after this. So, I think what this should do, and it's what it intended to do, was to let the fans know for sure that this is not going to be something that's that is called Deadpool but is not Deadpool. And I think that they pulled that off pretty well. That they gave the lighthearted thing without giving away too much. They allowed Ryan Reynolds to deliver some really interesting comedy. I'll be honest, I didn't laugh at it, but it's one of those things where Ryan Reynolds, I loved him as Hannibal Caine in Blade Trinity. I actually enjoyed his Deadpool in Wolverine Origins. So I'm
And
actually
back to Hal
very.
Jordan.
I mean,
It worked.
it wasn't his fault. Let me just put it that
Right.
way. It was not his fault.
His fault. Yeah.
He did everything he could. There was no way he was going to save that movie.
Yeah.
That movie was gonna bomb, and he just happened to be the one underneath it. But for Deadpool specifically, I think that he is definitely he's definitely the right choice for this character. And if this movie doesn't do it, it's not possible.
Yeah. Just don't make the costume green or animated. They'll be fine. I'm looking forward to this, and
He just needs to look at the audience and go, "What do you guys think? Should I kill this guy? Who are you talking to? Them. Who?"
that could be really fun. I don't know if it's going to be in 3D, but they could do a lot of gags too. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I think it looks good. Again, it's not a Marvel Studios film. It's from Fox. Now, excuse me.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four is not tracking that well in terms of delivering the quality. So, again, we'll see. We shall see.
We'll see, and we might have a discussion on it. I know that I'm going to see it no matter what the rating is.
Oh yeah.
So anyone who wants to join me for that discussion is more than happy to join me. Also, I would like to say that I'm actually writing some articles on Mission Impossible on the Gun and Geek website. If anyone wants to check that out. At gunandgeek.com. I'm working on part 2 right now. Part 1's kind of a history of the franchise specifically. But Kent, are you doing anything that you want to be addressing on the show?
Nothing I could talk about officially right now.
Okay. Lobster, do you want to plug anything?
In a couple of weeks, we will be doing our first live audience participation commentary of one of the 90s Flash episodes on Crimson Comet. We're doing The Trickster with Mark Hamill. We're going to have it up live on the Gonna Geek website, and the episodes are now all streaming. The 90s Flash are all available on CW Seed, so you can watch online, watch along with us, and riff along with us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We haven't set a date, but it's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks, so check the Gonna Geek site for that.
All I will say is John Wishley's ship for life, son.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But at this particular point, is there anything else that you want to bring up?
Windows 10 actually does seem to work. Just want to get that out there.
Don't step on ants. You step
Yes.
on ants, you're a jerk at this point.
Yep. And if you wish to leave us a comment, please do so underneath. Also, if you don't mind, just go ahead and click on that little like button that you see down there. And if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And I'll try to keep the videos coming as much as I can. But also, we have our Arthouse Legends video podcast, which you can find on the Gun Geek website as well as iTunes. And our latest episode was on the Bicycle Thief or Bicycle Thieves, depending on who you talk to. But that is up right now, and our next one's going to be Witness next week. So kind of keep that in mind if that's something that intrigues you. But at this time, I'm the Movie Dude Eric.
And this is Kent.
And this is John Lobster.
And good night.